Okay, so now we're going to do an open flame solder. This is useful for larger gauge wire and for, well, just as the situation arises. You don't want to open flame solder if you can avoid it, but it is extremely useful. It's extremely fast. It's way faster than the iron. It does damage the insulation. You want to try to avoid that if you can, but it does damage it. Just know that. You will need more heat shrink than you did with the previous wiring repair. So I'm going to take my snips again. We're just going to, there we go, so you can see, chop off a section. Right, chopped off a section. Same thing. This again is 20 gauge wire. I happen to be repairing a DVD player in a truck right now that someone stole and chopped all the connectors off. So that's why I have a surplus of this wire. It uses a lot of 20 gauge wire. So again, I showed you how to strip in the previous video. I'm not going to go through all that jazz again. So just know that that's what I'm doing currently there. I stripped some wire. I'm going to strip some more wire. Yeah, stripping got me through college, literally. I worked as an electrician's assistant for a little while. And you do. Also, there is another method to stripping that if you're endowed like I am, you can do. It's called bucktooth stripping. If you have boxing promoter's teeth, like a gap between your teeth, like I do, I'd show you right now, but I really don't want to. You can place the wire between your front teeth, the gap in your front teeth, and bite it with your lower teeth and pull on the wire. Don't do that, it's gross. I've done it out of necessity, roadside repairs, but it is gross. Avoid it. So again, we're Snoop Dogging the wire, twisting it up nice and tight. And which way do you twist it? I don't know, whichever way your hand turns. One way will tighten up when you twist the wires together, one way won't. So, okay. Sorry about that. Push some stuff out of the way. Again, you want to make an X, go about halfway in the wire, twist it around, nice and tight, nice and tight. Now, like I was saying before, if you have an exposed end that you can slip the heat shrink on, great, go ahead and twist the wires together, put the heat shrink on. But let's say, for instance, you didn't. Let's say that you're right in the middle of a harness, you can't get to either end to slip it on. Well, that's a simple solution. Before you twist it together, you would slide your heat shrink on and then twist the wires together. Try to move it away from where you're going to be soldering, because it will shrink with the soldering iron or with this flame. So that's something you want to avoid. I have done before where you don't have much wire to work with. You put the heat shrink on, you solder it up, you go to slide it, and the end of it is shrunk and you can't move the thing. Then you got to cut that loose and then slide it up. So try to avoid that if you can, but hey, accidents happen. We're all people. So, how to open flame solder. You need this to be exposed. You don't need it to be pressed up against anything. So I'm just going to suspend it here, and I'm going to turn the camera that way and move this so I don't blow myself up. Okay, so now got my solder in hand. Same stuff I was working with before. Let me move this. The camera's actually sitting on a spool of solder right now, so that's the only reason I want to remove it. And hold the solder between your first two fingers, just because it lets you manipulate it really easily. Now what I'm going to do is, obviously if there's carpet back here, I want to go from this direction, away from anything that could melt. Since there's nothing really here that'll melt, this table, I don't know what the hell it's made out of, but I'm just going to go at it kind of like so. Now this has just like our iron has a gas up and gas down. I'm going to go gas down. I want as small as possible. And when you initially fire this thing off, it's got a larger flame than it does once it gets burning. So see, there we go. The flame shrinks down, and I'm just gonna hold it. Now again, I'm gonna heat the wire. Well, as long as it keeps running, I'm gonna heat the wire directly. I'm gonna try not to put the center blue portion on the wire. You guys probably can't see this, but see, I told you it would ruin the insulation, and it does. Now with this, you have to be very quick. Touch it. Touch it. Don't touch the flame, touch the wire. And solder will spill off of this. However, solder doesn't really stick to very much. Keep going. Try not to put your solder in the way of the flame, because it will melt it off. This is literally to be used in emergencies only. Okay, so now there we go. As you can, I don't know if you can see, there's smoke coming off of it, and it is hot. So there we go, nice and solid. Give it a pull, make sure it won't come apart, because if your joint comes apart, you're not doing yourself any good. Now with this, I'm gonna take the full-on piece of heat shrink as soon as I find it. I think there it is. It was stuck to my arm. Full piece of heat shrink, and I'm going to cover this whole entire joint up like so. Now remember how I said don't use direct flame when you're heating your heat shrink? We're gonna cheat. Same deal. Don't touch the flame directly to the heat shrink. Stand off of it a good ways and just heat and rotate. It don't take a lot to get this to work. And I'll show you what happens when you mess up and you get too close. Keep it moving. Don't stay in the same place. This stuff likes heat, but not that much heat. Just keep it going around. And you can see it's starting to shrink out nice and good. If you see smoke come off of this, you did it wrong. Okay, so now it's nice and hot. I'm gonna squish it. Get some of that adhesive to come out of there. And there you go. Nice and clean. Look at that. Okay, now some common mistakes. See that? I don't know if you can see that. I had some balls of solder that fell off from earlier before I started shooting this video, and they just peel right off of this little plastic table. No biggie. They also peel off a carpet, but don't test that. You don't want balls of solder on your carpet, in your car especially. Unless you plan on throwing your carpet away, then who gives a crap. So there we go. Now, if you make a mistake and you touch too closely, you will know before long, because you will see that bubble. If you see heat shrink bubble, you have burnt it. Don't do that. Don't do that. Really don't do that. Also, solder, when you're using an open flame, will make these little dingleberries on the end. You usually want to cut those off. You can melt those off. I like to cut them off just because it's cleaner and it doesn't drip, and you don't have to worry about it sticking to anything. So this solder, which I didn't talk much about in the first video, is rosin core solder. It has a material known as flux inside of it. Common mechanics joke is resin core, but it's rosin core, which means that it will flow on its own. If you have non-rosin core, or if you have a large diameter wire, you will need flux, and flux looks like a brown gooey paste, and you spread that on the portion of the wire that you wish to solder, and it will flow. The solder will flow on that. You see that a lot in people who sweat copper pipes. So that should do it. Happy wiring, everybody. Hope this video helped you. If you have any questions, just throw them up there and I'll get to them. Thanks.